And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Dynasty Force podcast. Ran a little late tonight. That's all my fault. So I will take the credit for that. But we are here with Dynasty Buys this episode. Guys that we are actively pursuing in our Dynasty leagues. Guys that we recommend you pursuing for whatever reason. Value, upside, whatever we got going on. And with me today, as always, Billy Briz, the Almighty. How's it going, buddy?
It's going pretty well, man. A little tired, had a long day. Last podcast of the day, got some DFS lineups, and then the challenge tonight.
This man and the challenge it's like an unseen love for a reality show. Actually, one of my coworkers, her name is Jenna, she's been trying to talk me into getting into a fantasy league for The Bachelor. No idea.
Oh, you don't want this smoke, man. You don't want this smoke, man. I'm telling you, we be playing on The Bachelor on FanDuel when FanDuel has this contest up. Me and my girlfriend, man, be grinding out this competition. We actually won the challenge, I want to say, one of the weeks over the summer when they first started doing it in the beginning of quarantine. She actually took down a prize pool of like 8,000 people, man.
Damn. That is... couldn't be me. As we move on, we have two guests with us today, more than just one. With us for the first time in a while. It's been too long since we've had Detroit Beastie on the pod. Chris, coming in from the Motor City itself. How's it going, buddy?
It's great. Thanks for having me back. It's been, I don't want to say love and hate. That's the first thing that popped into my mind. It has nothing to do with hate. It's all love, but our schedules haven't connected. But tonight, we're on the same wavelength. So happy to be here, and we can chat it up. Started off hot. Billy said my shirt was fantastic before we were live. So I love the energy going here tonight, guys.
It is bright. It is like a nice Twitter bird blue, and it lights up my day. And with us, I had to bring him back after a great episode a few weeks ago. FF Superflex Guru on Twitter, Trey Tyndall. How's it going? Welcome back, buddy.
Hey, thanks for extending the invitation again. I'm glad I can come on with Detroit Beastie. He's almost as electric as his new head coach. Dan Campbell had like a 2-hour press conference. No big deal. But I am excited to be back, and thanks for having me.
Yeah. Speaking of Dan Campbell, Chris, are you going to bite someone's kneecap off in this episode?
No, absolutely not. And I'm glad you brought that up because, I'm not going to get like on a crazy tangent here, but people were saying it was very cringy. It was very weird for them. And those are the same people that are posting their own news, or they have It's like, there's a lot of social media justice warriors here, and they always have to point out what someone did wrong, what someone did here. Relax and focus on yourself, people. Dan Campbell's just an excited guy, first-time head coach. He's a younger guy, comes into in a historically bad franchise, and he's excited. Let the guy have some fun. It was a nice breath of fresh air here in the city, but again, people have to judge everything. So, no, I won't be biting kneecaps, and I back Dan Campbell and the Lions 100%.
I'll say this.
If you want to install the idea of physicality, you talk about biting someone's kneecap off in the opening press conference, I guess. Trey, you were going to say?
Hey, I would rather have a head coach go on a crazy tangent like Dan Campbell than have an Adam Gase come in and just have crazy eyes. So,
Crazy eyes. Or Jason Garrett and the clapping. Never know. Anyway,
People
on this
episode...
On this episode today, we have, as I mentioned, Dynasty Buys. We have a nice little discussion about really the only piece of relevant news, we'll say, that has dropped in the last week or so. And I'll get some Super Bowl takes going on out here too. And I actually just remembered Bill and I have some quick hits to hit from last week's podcast as well. So,
Is that
without further ado,
2-0? Did I go 2-0 last week?
I don't know.
I definitely picked the Bucks.
What are you talking about?
Back-to-back weeks. Trey was.
You
Trey
did
was
pick the
here.
Bucks.
He did. I was there. Don't
Rob,
you dare try to slander Billy's line.
Rob, you want me to humble Billy real quick? Last time we got together to play DFS, I absolutely buried him. Yeah. I haven't heard nothing about
that. I completely forgot what Billy was talking about, but now that I remembered, obviously, yeah, he did pick Tampa Bay and Kansas City last week, so that did work out for him. But for our quick question for the main piece of news, and it's only right that we have Detroit Beastie on this episode to talk about it with. Matt Stafford and the Detroit Lions have mutually agreed to part ways. So I'll kick it over to Chris first. Where would you like to see him go? Where do you think it's most realistic that he goes?
Well, thank you for leading with me here. And to be honest with you, I don't just talk on things just to talk about them. If I'm not well informed, I normally take a back seat. That's just how I am. And I don't know where he's going to go. I just want to say that Matthew Stafford leaving here, I've talked about it on numerous broadcasts for the last month or so. I think it's a good decision. There's no ill will here between me personally and the city of Detroit for Matthew Stafford. He's a fantastic guy. His wife and him were very good in the city. And I think it's right. The Detroit Lions owe that to Matthew Stafford to let him move on and go elsewhere. On a side note, I did hear that the San Francisco 49ers look to be the favorites here to land him. And in some ways, I think that a draft pick and even getting Fred Warner back for the Lions would be fantastic. The Lions have been searching for a stud linebacker for years. They've wasted dozens of second-round picks on linebackers, and none of them have panned out. So to get a draft selection and a young stud sideline-to-sideline guy like Fred Warner from San Francisco, that would be great. But as a whole, to tie this thing up here, I don't care where Matthew Stafford goes. I want him to succeed and do well wherever he goes. He's given his heart and his soul here to the city, and I wish him nothing but the best as he moves on in his career here.
Yeah, San Francisco would be interesting. I believe that Matt Stafford is better than kind of the situations he's been in recent years. So I would like to see that San Francisco situation because they have a pretty strong offensive mind in place. They have a solid offensive line, options. Shane Sklidini commenting, Indy, ClapGod253 on Twitter. I also like the Indy option a lot. That was the one that immediately came to mind. He also commented before, love all these guys except Trey, of course. Trey,
Typical.
Rebuttal?
Typical. Hey, I mean, the other thing I have to say is I took a lot of money from that guy week 14, 15, and 16 in fantasy playoffs. That's all I got to say.
No ill will there. But I definitely, I remember you talking about that. Trey, what do you think the Lions are likely to do to replace him? Draft someone at 7?
I mean, I really like the idea. I would have liked the idea of Matthew Stafford staying there and them drafting Zach Wilson. But obviously, Matthew Stafford wants to leave. So I would like the idea of what Chris said about trying to get Fred Warner because they do need a defensive stud on their defense because, like you said, they got Jared Davis and, 5 other rookies that they tried to bring in. They all didn't really pan out. But I would like for them to draft Zach Wilson. And if they don't want that, I don't know, maybe bring in a veteran. But I don't know who they would bring in because their offense is a whole mess this season with that. They don't have any wide receivers either. So.
Yeah, Kenny Galladay is a free agent. Marvin Jones is a free agent. Marvin Jones, I feel like they're more likely to bring back Jones, but he doesn't really fit the timeline if they're looking at the future. I know Jameis Winston's a free agent, so he's a potential target, possibly. But that, you start to question about timelines again, so who really knows? Bill, is there anything else you want to touch on this Matthew Stafford topic? Anywhere you'd like to see him next year?
Anywhere where there's good receivers, because it's about to sound like terrible analysis, but he's a good thrower of the football. So if you put some receivers around him, he'll look pretty good.
How would you like him in Denver, throwing to Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy?
Nah, man. Denver's just got a bad aura around them right now. They can't win for fucking losing.
I will say that maybe something in their favor is that John Elway is no longer their GM, and
it's about time, man. He's honestly, like, if you really think about it, he might be one of the worst GMs in like all of sports.
He did sign Peyton Manning though.
Bro, signing Peyton Manning isn't fucking impressive out of the 8 quarterbacks that they missed out on.
I believe he was promoted, actually, but I don't think he oversees player personnel anymore, which is important within the franchise. So, I think we talked about most of the Matthew Stafford topics. The quick point from last week that I wanted to hit on really quick, Billy and I came out with our 2020 season awards last week, and I posted some polls on Twitter to run through the listeners' opinions on who should win the awards. So, real quick, let's run it down the results. Fantasy MVP, 41% of the vote went to Travis Kelce. So, basically, everyone was in favor of Travis Kelce on that one. Bill and I both took Travis Kelce on that one. Fantasy Most Improved Player, the winner was David Montgomery at 37%, which is interesting because Bill and I both took wide receivers. He took DK Metcalf. I took Calvin Ridley. So a little difference of opinion there. Fantasy Comeback Player of the Year. Most people voted for Aaron Rodgers. There was a few people who voted Alex Smith.
Didn't I put David Montgomery in that category?
You did. Yeah.
Yeah, man. I got the categories mixed up. I was going to say I knew I had David Montgomery for something, man. I don't ever like David Montgomery for shit.
Fantasy Disappointment of the Year. Michael Thomas won that vote. Bill took Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, and I took Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
And how close was that vote, Robert?
Let's see.
Because I think I took McCaffrey in that.
It looks as though, to brag here, we had 8 votes on the poll. 4 votes for Michael Thomas, 2 votes for Clyde, and then 1 each for Saquon and McCaffrey. McCaffrey was disappointing, though, because you always thought he would come back and didn't. Who is the best?
It doesn't matter. I guess voting doesn't really matter, right?
Basically, it doesn't. Who is the best unexpected breakout? We had 3 rookies and Robert Tonyan in the category, and James Robinson was the landslide winner, as expected. Who is your fantasy football rookie of the year? Justin Jefferson won the vote, 63% of the vote. James Robinson, Jonathan Taylor also received votes. And Billy's rookie of the year, Justin Herbert, sitting there at a whopping 0%.
Yeah, man, I don't understand that. He's actually like real life rookie of the year.
Who is the best quarterback? Taking into account draft position, finishing consistency. Billy took Aaron Rodgers. I took Josh Allen, and they tied in this poll, both at 43%. So that's also interesting. Who was the best running back? Billy took Derrick Henry. I took Alvin Kamara. They tied with James Robinson for a 3-way split for first. Best wide receiver for the season. Billy took Devontae Adams. I took Stephon Diggs. And Devontae Adams won that poll 56% to 33% for Diggs. Justin Jefferson got a little bit of love on that one too. And then finally, best tight end. I don't even have to tell you who won. But I will tell you that Robert Tonyan did also receive, or I'm sorry, not Robert Tonyan. Darren Waller also received some votes. That would have been bad if Tonyan got some votes over Travis Kelce. But those are the results from the general public's thoughts on the 2020 season awards. Some differences, but some, similarities there. So that works. I just wanted to give a shout out to the people, like I said I would, like I promised. I know I had one more thing before we got into the Super Bowl picks. Billy, let's start with you since you're on fire.
Oh, come on. There's only one right answer to this question. You know who I'm going with. So I'm not even going to reveal the team. You know who I'm going with.
Chris, who's he going with?
I believe he's going to go with Kansas City and Pat Mahomes, right?
Got it.
I think you have to. Trey?
We're just picking games, not against the spread, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, fudge, dude. It's hard to pick against Tom Brady, but it's also really hard to pick against Patrick Mahomes.
Can I say one thing, though, about this breakdown of this game, though?
Yeah.
Do we not remember in the middle, towards, like, the later part of the season, when the fucking Bucks were getting torched every week secondary-wise?
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what Pat Mahomes is going to do in Tampa Bay for this one. I don't care if it's in Tampa Bay. Give me the Chiefs. And I'm going to the bank with that one, right over to the DraftKings Sportsbook and AC, and place my Chiefs ticket.
Well, the Raiders fan in me is saying Tampa Bay Gronkaneers are going to win. So that's who I'm going with.
All right. Chris, your pick? Your official pick?
Yeah, I'm going with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks. I mean, Billy mentioned how they were getting torched, in the beginning of the season. Well, since then, they've had a couple young rookies step up at the secondary position, and they're going to be A-okay. And I can't bet against Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. It just doesn't happen, and he's very good. So I'm going with Tampa Bay over Kansas City.
It's very good. They're both very good. It'll be interesting. It's the matchup the NFL wanted to see. It's like the Michael Jordan versus LeBron James when, LeBron James was in his second year and, well, Jordan wasn't in the league at that time, but Jordan probably would have been if he stayed in the league as long as Tom Brady stayed in the league. So, it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch. I will take the Chiefs. I think they're just a more well-rounded team. I think the defense is better than the Bucks defense. And I think Mahomes right now is better than Tom Brady. You got both teams. It's going to be a fun game, specifically because both teams have weapons galore. The Bucks have, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, who will be back for the Super Bowl. Gronk, pretty good running game. They got they know the committee they're running now with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. They got the splits right, and so that backfield's really starting to hit now. And then on the other side, we all know how hot the Kansas City offense can be. So, like I said, it'll be a fun game. I don't know how much the defenses will play into it, but if it's my choice, they won't play much at all into it. So we'll see how that plays out.
I don't know. Watching the Sue in the Super Bowl will be pretty nice. I feel like he knows he might curb stomp someone. He might, suplex someone. You don't really know with Sue. So
we've been there, and I'm sure Chris would rather avoid those Detroit days of nasty Ndamukong Suh. All right, so on this episode, as promised, coming up, Dynasty trade buys. As I mentioned at the top of the show, these are guys that we are actively pursuing in Dynasty leagues. These are guys that we are recommending that you pursue because of value, or because, we just think they have great potential for the future. So, I don't know what great host to kick it off with here. Let's start with Trey. Trey's name is at the top here on my little comment list. So, Trey, I will let you kick it off with whoever you want to kick it off with.
Okay, well, I'll start off with my number one Dynasty trade buy, and I've been buying him everywhere. I had 12% rostership, and I had one day off from work. And I was like, Trey, you got to try to get as much rostership as you can. Ended up getting 83% rostership. I got 6 shares of this guy, and I'm talking about A.J. Dillon. I love me some A.J. Dillon. The fact of the matter, he is going to be taking over that backfield next year we all expect Aaron Jones to leave. With Jonathan Williams, we all probably expect him to leave as well. And even if he stays on board, will he take over as lead back? I'm not for sure. And with a small sample size that we do have of A.J. Dillon, whenever he was the lead back, Week 16, 21 carries, 124 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty good. And he's looked pretty good in this playoffs so far whenever he's been getting his touches. They love to run the ball. Next season, I'm guaranteeing at least 20 touches a game for him. And with that, you can't really not buy him, especially with where his value's at right now. And I would say in most trades, I've gotten him for mid-seconds or a player and a third, and I'm willing to pay that. So
I could see you willing to pay that. I can give you kind of the devil's advocate side of the argument, the reason why I wouldn't be buying A.J. Dillon, but I would have to preface it with saying that if you're paying a mid-second or you're paying a third and a low-end player, then I am all in on that, even with the slight concern on the other side of the argument I would have. But real quick, Bieber's real dad on Twitter, Blair, who is a member of the podcast, commenting, Chase Claypool not being treated like the silky smooth 6'3" alpha #1 wide receiver he is going to be next year. And fine work, boys. Thank you, Blair, and thank you for tuning in. Everyone congratulate Blair on Twitter, by the way. I will not tell you why, because it is his news, but if you watch the show, you should congratulate him, and he'll know what it's for. That said, he mentioned Chase Claypool not being treated well. I like the take of Chase Claypool, but I think everyone kind of worries more about the quarterback situation, Ben being there, and who knows how.
I had Claypool, man. I had Claypool as a top 25 Dynasty receiver.
Did you? I didn't even realize when we went through that last week.
Yeah, man. I'm a big guy for the Notre Dame alumni.
Oh, maybe I did realize, because I think I did say something about you and your Notre Dame people. I do like Chase Claypool. He's a great talent. He's a good long-term asset. Do you, Trey or Chris, have any opinion on Chase Claypool?
Here's my thing with the young Pittsburgh wide receivers. My video's lagging here. I don't know if it's my issue or what's going on, so I'll try and get out what I have to say in a short period of time here. I'm a big character guy. I hate when all these people, they're always dancing and there's a lot of off-the-field stuff. I'm just not a fan of that kind of behavior. Is that because I'm officially old? I'm in my mid-30s now, so when a 19-year-old kid is dancing around rather than lifting weights or reading the playbook, that bugs me. So be it. But Chase Claypool and Juju and even Deontay Johnson are bona fide fantastic wide receivers. I just don't want any business with them on my own team.
Interesting. We've seen that. We've been there. I am receiving another comment here as I add Trey back in as he's walking around there. If Packers do re-sign Jones, how's your affect your thoughts on Dillon? This was actually before Blair commented. This was the devil's advocate side of the argument that I was going to bring up. I don't think they re-sign Aaron Jones, but I think it's very likely that they franchise tag him because he is the best running back in that group. He's a difference maker when he's on the football field. And realistically, Aaron Rodgers, I think he'll be back in Green Bay next year, but for how long? When they drafted Jordan Love in the first round, they kind of put the writing on the wall that it's not going to be a long-term future for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. So, like I said, how long is the window for you to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers? And then you turn from being a legitimate contender to being in the evaluating of Jordan Love phase. And for that, I think they got to franchise tag Aaron Jones and bring him back and, keep your offense as best as it can be. So that would be my side of the argument. Maybe not next year for A.J. Dillon, but even so, I think eventually this is 100% going to be A.J. Dillon's backfield. But I don't know about, 20 touches a game, as you said, Trey. I think he'll lead the backfield, but Matt LaFleur himself, he's a running back by committee guy. So I don't know that he'll feel comfortable giving any one running back the amount of work. Chris, do you have an opinion on A.J. Dillon, one way or another?
Yeah, he's a fantastic running back. I'd want to acquire as many shares as I could here. And I know we're live, but I'm going to hop on my computer, so I will be right back.
No problem, sir.
Being frank.
Not at all. No worries. Trey, I'll have you follow up. What are your thoughts on A.J. Dillon if Jones is back for next season?
Yeah, no, see, I didn't really think about the franchise tag. I guess that is an option. I didn't really think about that because they could use that, but in my eyes, they wouldn't have drafted him in the second round if they were going to franchise him. But I mean, that's always an option, so you do have to plan for that. If Jones does resign, that's going to hurt Dillon a lot. He'd be exactly what Jamal Williams is this year, and Jamal Williams, at the end of the season, if you look at him, he's like RB26, like he's serviceable, but on a game by game basis, he's not really going to be startable. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen to A.J. Dillon, especially since I've been getting all these shares, but I definitely could see that happening if they do decide to franchise tag Jones.
Especially for fantasy value aspect of it, because Jones is the pass catcher, is the one who tends to hit on the big plays. Dillon could be in that kind of grinded out short yardage situation, which would make him good for the team, but not necessarily good for fantasy. So we would have to see about that. Bill, what are your thoughts on A.J. Dillon?
Man, not a guy that I was really too high on pre-draft process, and then I just didn't like the landing spot to the Packers. I would be a little bit more inclined to pick Zach Moss, Buffalo Bills running back that was drafted around that same exact range. I'm a big Zach Moss believer.
For some unknown
touched
reason.
the field last year, dog. It's hard for me, especially in Dynasty sometimes, to pick guys that I don't know that are going to be on the field, because Dynasty's not a type of league format where you can just blow a fucking roster spot and not have a guy to be able to start. There's nothing worse than having 6 teams filled with fucking Keyshawn Vaughn on there.
I know what you mean. But I will say, who knows if Zach Moss will be the lead running back next year. Just saying. I don't know. We'll have to see one way or another. A.J. Dillon, like I said, even with Aaron Jones coming back, I would be willing to buy, because even if Aaron Jones does come back, it would just be delaying that, buying process for 1 year. And then afterwards, say, Jones does get franchise tag, which I believe if he does go back to Green Bay, it's only on the franchise tag. I don't think he's going to sign a whole new long-term contract now, especially with the Rodgers situation. But if Jones comes back, you're just delaying, the A.J. Dillon breakout for 1 year. So it's not hurting my thought process too much on A.J. Dillon. I'd still be willing to buy at the price that you're buying him at. So, yeah, I mean, I like to talk on A.J. Dillon. Let's keep it up here. Chris, one of your Dynasty buys, whoever you can head into.
Well, as you can see, I switched from my phone to the computer, and the computer automatically turns it into a Blake Griffin lookalike filter here. As you can see, the lighting around me is always such a thing where on my phone I'm Chris. When on my new computer, I get called Blake Griffin here, and by the looks of it,
I can tell.
I wouldn't put anybody down if they called me Blake Griffin here, but just something fun to add here. So one of my biggest buys that I think people are passing up on is Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas. So with Dak, weeks 1 through 5, Zeke Elliott was RB3. He in PPR formats, right? He had 89 carries, 364 yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, and he added another 24 receptions on 32 targets, 173 yards, and a full touchdown. So it was about 22.3 yards a game in PPR formats for Zeke. So week 6 and after, this is after Dak, hurt his ankle, split his ankle at home, I believe, against the Giants here. He dropped down to RB 26. That's about a 52% point per game average, from 22.3 to 10.8 PPR points a game. So in this day and age, especially on social media, how toxic it is, and everybody is, everybody's a sell. So if you're selling everybody, who's going to be left on your roster? So by those numbers alone, Zeke hasn't done anything lately. He's washed up. He's not going to do much. You should sell him, sell him, sell him. Well, I think when Dak comes back, he's going to be okay. I don't think Zeke's going to go anywhere. When I sat down to kind of look at my notes and research this stuff, everything that I came across was, where is Zeke going to go? Who's going to sign him? Zeke's not going to go anywhere. Nobody's going to want to pick up the amount of money it's going to take to get Zeke on their team. So I think he's going to be okay with Dak back next year and add him. He's a workhorse kind of guy. And I know there's a ton of stuff against him. I've seen it all. I'm sure you guys have all seen it all too. Social media, and this is including, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, Snapchat, Instagram, whatever you can. It's a very it's a toxic environment. I hate to keep saying that, but it's true. Everybody is wrong. Their opinion is the right thing. Nobody better have an opinion. I'm always right. You're always right. So if everybody's always right, and if everybody's always a sell, then what the heck are we doing here? Why are we on a broadcast? Why are we writing articles here? So Zeke is going to be okay. I'm telling you now, you can buy him next to nothing, really. People are just looking to unload him because the masses on social media are telling you to. People listen. That's all they do. The old adage when we're kids, and you'd get caught smoking or you do something stupid in school and your parents would say, well, if Trey jumped off of a bridge, would you do that too? Well, I don't know. I'm my own person. You're your own person. Make your own decisions. You don't have to let the flow of the toxic flow of social media influence you. Zeke is going to be okay. Zeke is a buy. If you've already sold him, then what's done is done. But if you haven't, I would hold on to him unless it was an ungodly offer. But if you own him, keep him. If not, look to acquire him. Nobody's looking to acquire Zeke right now. And again, nobody is expecting much either. So it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, or the guy he's a top 10 running back since day one, top 5 running back, if I'm not mistaken here. So don't be a fool. Go ahead, Zeke.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned Zeke on here because it's funny too. Let me actually pull it up. But Trey and I, in the Fantasy Forecast League, the Listener League that we have, we actually made a trade. I had Zeke on my roster. I did trade him Zeke, but it wasn't like I was like, oh God, I hate Zeke. I hate his long-term value. I want to sell him. But it was more along the lines of my team needs to rebuild, and Zeke doesn't really fit that criteria. So we made a trade here. Let me pull it up real quick. But since you are a buyer of Zeke, Trey, what do you think about the argument?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was falling in line whenever you sent me that Zeke trade. It was kind of like a straight swap. Well, it wasn't a straight swap, but you wanted CEH and I wanted Zeke. So it's kind of like, let's add some players on and see if we can find a bigger deal too.
Yeah.
But I like Zeke. I think I saw on Twitter, I don't know if this is true or not, but the Cowboys are tied to him until 2027. I don't know if that's true, but that is just absolutely insane. With your running back, you want long-term viability, long-term security. And especially with the Dallas Cowboys that, they're always going to have weapons around them. Zeke is definitely a buy for me, especially at his current value.
Yeah. I don't think you'll ever get Zeke at a lower value than you will now. by the way.
Real quick, if I may. So I haven't been on a broadcast in probably 2 weeks, right? I've been laying low, writing my hockey stuff, just watching how things are going. Football is all but done. I write bottom of the barrel, and that's it. I have 2 weeks now to write the Super Bowl one. So in my spare time, the last 5 or 6 days since Championship Sunday, I watch everything. I may not comment, I may not always post, but I'm watching everything. And to be honest with you, a lot of people on Twitter, mainly, they try to be hot in all the words. They try and my account is the best. What I'm saying is the best. I'm the smartest man in the room kind of thing. So everybody's giving the wrong advice. Everybody's giving the same advice. And it's up to us, me personally, and even you guys here, to kind of wade through that, and I trust all three of you. So in a way, it's up to us to kind of wade through that and give advice to people that we trust, or give advice to people we know that trust us, and there's some like mutual respect going on. Now, you might be shocked at who says what and what website is this. They're not all created equal. I'm telling you now. And again, I've had this conversation with a few people, and the one thing that's been thrown out is, well, Chris, you sound very bitter. You sound like you're hating on other people. I'm not hating. I want to see everybody succeed. This is just my opinion, kind of as an outsider looking into the cog that is social media. And there is a lot of awful advice. And as I said, everybody sell. Everybody thinks they are they know what's going on. Like selling at a high point is what you're supposed to do. That's 101 of the fantasy football commandments. When a guy's value is high, you sell. You don't have to sell everybody on earth if they have the highest value, right? So when we go through this thing, it's just been a long season, right? And I hate to go on this tangent here, but it's been a long, exhausting season. And to see people give such awful advice and give such horrible opinions, and again, can an opinion be horrible? Just your own personal thought. Everybody has them. Just be careful with who you trust and where you get your information from. If someone says, hey, I'll sell Zeke I'll just give him to you. You can have him. Those are the kind of leagues I want to be in, because I think I'd run through that kind of league, and I'd run through that division here. So just be careful. Be polite along the way. Don't be rude. Don't yell at people. That's not my MO. It's just nice to get this kind of stuff off my chest every once in a while.
Oh, I feel that, Chris, speaking the truth out here. I know exactly what you mean of people just, trying to make a point against and saying sell. And, like why I don't have a specific example in front of me, but, it's just bad advice to tell someone to sell someone at a low point, or just because you don't think they can grow as a player for whatever reason, or anything of that nature.
Everybody has this dream of headlining an on-air talent for one of the big sites, one of the hugest sites. Everybody thinks they're going to be working alongside Matthew Berry or the guys at CBS. Every time they say something stupid where I'm selling Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to trade Patrick Mahomes because it's the right move. They do those things, and then they screenshot it just in hopes 8 months down the road or a year down the road, whatever they did made sense and they can shove it in our faces. It doesn't seem very it's not fun to me. It's more exhausting than anything. So be your own person, heed your own advice, heed my advice, whatever you want to do, and play it simple. Be simple with this stuff. It's very easy.
I feel that. I do have the trade, the Zeke trade between Trey and I up. I sent Trey Allen Robinson, Ezekiel Elliott, and Taysom Hill, and I received Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Sam Darnold, Noah Fant, Adam Troutman, and the 211. As some reference, 1.75 tight end premium. So Noah Fant and Adam Troutman do have a lot of value, and it is a 2-quarterback league. So Sam Darnold and Taysom Hill, I mean, they're kind of around the same ranking. But what do you think about that, Chris?
Well, I mean, I like it. It sounds like you guys talked about it a lot because there was, Adam Troutman he's a nice dynasty stash at tight end. To me, it doesn't sound like it was like a bing bang boom kind of trade. This is what I want. Like it was fine tuned over a period of time, and those are my favorite trades. They're very specific to each team's needs, and you guys went head to head. I would imagine there were several text messages, emails. However, there were several conversations. It wasn't accepted on one offer. There were several counters, and there was things went back and forth. You guys were on the same page in terms of who you wanted to get and who were you willing to give up here. I love the idea. Nobody really talks about Sam Darnold. I'm still a big Sam Darnold guy. I'd absolutely love to see him here in Detroit, although I don't think that'll happen here. But if it made sense for your team at the time, if it makes sense for your team in the future, then who am I to complain? I'm not a veto guy because, as I've said, I don't know how much time two teams spent going back and forth. Why this, why that, and who they're getting. So who am I to tell somebody how to run their team? But I love the idea. You had an idea in mind, Rob. Trey, you had an idea in mind, and you got together in the middle, and a nice little trade was born out of it. So great work.
A nice little baby. Bill, you're awfully quiet up there. I see what you got going on. I don't know if everyone else sees. I'm sure a few other people see, but
thanks for the invite.
Trey or Bill, you are muted at the moment.
I said it's been a pretty long day, man. I've been podcasting since like 11 a.m. today, and then over on the site at Pub Sports Radio, we had Miranda Fear the Maverick on today, so it's been a long day, man.
I feel that. I just have to laugh at the fact that you tried to talk when you were muted. What you got going on?
I usually don't do these on my cell phone. I hate doing this on my cell phone.
Get stoned and forget how to use StreamYard,
huh? All right. Speaking of Bill, let's head into your Dynasty buy. Whichever one you want to cover first, head on into it.
Since we're in the running back conversation, let's keep it in the running back conversation. I don't know if you and Trey remember this, but a couple weeks ago, man, I said this. One of these ADPs of one of these running backs, man, really shocked me. So we're going to go right back down to the well again. Joe Mixon, man, a lot of people have him on the hate list this offseason, only appearing in 6 games last season, rushing for 428 yards with just 138 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. That obviously won't get it done. But Mixon's still only 24 years old. He got re-signed last season. The team is invested into him. Samaje Perine and Trayvon Williams don't really scare me too much. Joe Burrow makes this offense around him a lot better. Everybody kind of benefits from the offense. We only seen Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow in good game scenarios maybe once or twice last year. Bengals found themselves in a lot of passing situations where Joe Burrow was starting the ball over 40 passing attempts per game at one point. The offensive line is still a concern, but Jonah Williams should be back, and hopefully they add another piece over the all season through the draft and stuff like that. But man, if Joe Mixon's going in the 2nd and 3rd round, I'm gonna have a lot of Joe Mixon this year. He's just one of those guys that really does it for me. I have a certain amount of check boxes that I like to run through for my running backs. Are you in a good offense? Can you catch balls? Are you a 3-down goal line back? And maybe the receiving yards aren't there yet for Joe Mixon, but maybe a guy like Joe Burrow can really bring it out of him. And I'm a big fan of Joe Mixon this year. It's one person I haven't really seen the community talk about too much this year. Am I crazy for this take, or is this a bad take? Is Joe Mixon, are people buying him? I haven't really been around the NFL community too much.
I would say that people, Chris talked about this heavily of people saying sell someone just to sell someone, and I think he brings up a good point here, because you could say the same thing that the Twitter community feels the same way about Joe Mixon here.
Absolutely, and if I may, real quick, Bill, Billy getting Bills here. So when it comes to Joe Mixon, everybody all season they dogged on him, they made fun of him, and it was just a fun little thing all season because he was in and out of the lineup. He didn't play, and after not playing for 6 or 7 weeks, then they put him on IR. There are a lot of jokes where they cut his foot off, he left his foot at home. But there was a lot of jokes here, and it was fun. It was all playful. Everyone was having fun with it, to break up the monotony of the season. It was like week 10, week 11 at the time. And then in that comes, a collection of people, a large collection of people that like they band together. Oh, I like what you're saying. No, I like what you're saying. What and they all get together and they form these movements on social media, especially Twitter, where I'm team no Joe Mixon, or I am team Joe Mixon. And it gets to the point where people aren't making their own decisions. They're making decisions based off large groups of people because it's just a fun, hip thing to do, right? It kind of takes out like your own personal research. So instead of me, getting my pen, getting my notes, and really digging in on something, I'm just going to say, you know what? I like what these people are doing. You know what? Trey is a good guy. We've had some fun. We've had some laughs. And if he says Joe Mixon is a bum, well, saves me the time. Joe Mixon's a bum, and I'm all in on that. There's never been any, like concrete facts. No one's doing their own research anymore. Everyone's just jumping in on the pile, jumping in on the bandwagon. And you could take out Joe Mixon's name and you can add player A, B, and C there. It don't matter. Hockey, baseball, football. Same people that has that bandwagon. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor had that bandwagon earlier in the season. Guy's a bust. After 5 games in his rookie season, he's a bust. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he was good, but he's a bust now. So it's just all nonsense. When it comes down to it, we have to trust our own research. We have to trust our own process. Get with a couple people that you like. Get with a couple of your favorite analysts, co-workers, whatever it is. Make your own judgments. Don't jump on and off bandwagons just because it's fun to do. Because for someone like me, I have a career, but I'm really trying to make my way in this business. It's for fun, but it's absolutely, it's not life or death for me, but I love doing the research. I'm not about hopping in and out of bandwagons here. So trust yourself, do your own research, and things will be okay.
Yeah. Play to Win Fantasy on P2W Fantasy on Twitter commented, "For good guys, appreciate that." He said, "Would like to see a huge Trey versus Chris debate here." So, Trey, we've obviously heard Chris talk about this for a while. Why should people listen to the fantasy Twitter community?
Well, I mean, it's hard to debate against what Chris is saying because he has a lot of valid points with it, and I see that all the time. It's just like, everything is, just a big tidal wave. If one person does it, it just builds up and builds up and builds up. And then it all comes crashing down but on Twitter, it's funny because I have to hold my tongue so much. I see a lot of people just, I put out my rankings and I do it as straightforward as I can. I say, this is who I think. And then no, there's not very many hot takes in there, but I go on other people's Twitters or rankings and I see they have some guy I have ranked at 12 all the way up at 2 or 3, and then they have like 50 interactions and 50 retweets. I'm sitting here like, okay, well, I'm not stopping my grind just because other people are doing things differently just to get interactions. And but that's just what Twitter is. I mean, we just gotta accept the facts and move on. I mean, if you actually have good takes that make sense, it's hard for people to look at it. But if you have crazy takes that, no one's going to agree with, that's going to get all the attention.
Can I throw another thing in there?
Sure thing, Bill.
I feel like one of the things that is very important is following the right people. You got to follow the right people on Twitter and stuff like that. Because, like, I remember when I first had Twitter, because I've been having Twitter since I was in 7th grade. So that's about 8 to 9 years now. And throughout time, as me using Twitter and stuff like that, I've definitely have noticed that I follow certain people and stuff like that where it's enjoyable to go on my timeline on a Sunday and watch people tilt and stuff like that. One of the greatest things that Chris said over on Pub was, and to start off the season, was one things that he does is on Sunday, he leaves all the social media stuff out, just let the TV run and just eat some good food and call it a day. And that's one thing I definitely have been trying to incorporate in my life a lot more.
I feel
People
nice,
use
nice
people
philosophical content here. I love it.
People use Twitter like it's gospel. And if you really think about it, if you're writing and broadcasting as much as we are, right? Twitter is just a little blip on in terms of interactions and views, right? There are so many other outlets here, and when people take Twitter, most importantly, so serious, it begins to cloud your judgment. That you have tunnel vision towards one kind of thing. You have tunnel vision towards, like 2 or 3 different pages. And again, like Trey said, you have hot takes or bad takes. Well, who's to judge those takes? There's no president of Twitter. There's no God of judging who's good and who's bad on social media. It's all in the eye of the beholder, right? So if you use Twitter for its intended purpose, which I do, as it's solely for entertainment purposes. It's nice to get my content out there, interact with a couple people, but it's not like my gospel, right? It's not like my Bible, right? So, we just got to, use it how we can. Everybody is a different person. Everybody makes their own decisions here. So again, who am I to judge one guy or girl for tweeting 75,000 times in a day compared to somebody else who doesn't tweet for a week and then drops something and it's pretty good. It's pretty successful. Everybody has their own way. We have to be open and adaptable to all things.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And as someone who doesn't tweet a whole ton, I feel that. Yeah, I think there's most of the things that are covered there. So I agree with basically everything that's been said.
I always like to say Twitter can be like a tool. I like to use everything as a tool. Whenever I am evaluating like a trade, I use, like Chris said, you go to the people that you trust. I use them as a tool. I use the trade calculator. I know a lot of people live and die by that. If they punch it in and says it's a good trade, they accept it. If it's not, they decline it. But you got to use that as a tool. You got to use a lot of things as tools and not just use it as a end all be all.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. All right. Did I ask either Trey or Chris about Joe Mixon and their value, what they think about Joe Mixon? I think I went straight to play to win. Comment.
You did, and then I kind of steered everybody in a social media directional debate. So for that, I apologize.
No, Chris, it's an educational debate, because maybe listeners of the podcast are, I'm not saying they're one of those people, but maybe they are, not completely understanding of the situation on Twitter, and maybe it's given them a new light, to look at things by. So, educational purposes, and they're very great and helpful to everyone, I believe. I think we can move on from Joe Mixon, though. I agree that he's a buy. I think it's unrelated to, like, if anyone's saying he isn't a buy, it's unrelated. It's got to be unrelated.
Am I crazy? Am I crazy though? Like, if we rewinded this tape about 2 or 3 years ago, and you gave us the same scenario of Joe Mixon, people would be jumping off the fucking walls.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And age isn't a factor. He's still very young. So
it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
He's going to be fine. And given the circumstances, he's going to be, you're going to be able to grab him as if he was RB30, right? Nobody wants to touch Mixon with a 10-foot pole. So those of us who are on Team Joe Mixon can get him very cheap, where we're going to have a solid RB1 and a solid RB2, maybe even a borderline RB2, RB3, and Joe Mixon is going to be fourth on our running back depth chart on our team, and I'll take those odds all day.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. I'll head into my first Dynasty buy here. So I don't know. This is a nice. Why I don't. My opinion on buying this person is because I believe you're going to be able to get him at the lowest possible value right now. I think it's bound to trend upward, but I don't know how high it's going to trend upward. And when I say the name, you may understand this a little bit more. I'm talking about Juju Smith-Schuster, Chris. By the way, Kitty says hi. Chris, you talked about this, that you're not super interested in buying a lot of the Pittsburgh wide receivers right now when Blair brought up Chase Claypool. But Juju, I don't see him as a Pittsburgh wide receiver. I don't see him as a super mature guy, as you mentioned. But what I will say in favor of Juju is that he is a free agent. And I really would be shocked if he returns with the Steelers. I really don't think it's possible based on their cap situation. I think franchise tagging him is the only way they could bring him back, but I don't see why they would franchise tag him. He really only has 1 year of great production, and that's the year with Antonio Brown. And I know normally when wide receivers are entering free agency, it's a concern because wide receivers are so dependent on their quarterback and the quarterback situation that they're in, the offense that they're in. So when you're in a situation where you're a free agent, you could go anywhere. You could, like, Juju could sign with the Jets tomorrow, or, well, not tomorrow, because technically not, but he could sign with the Jets, and then you would, just basically, have nothing but concerns about the long-term value about Juju. But then again, he could sign somewhere like Indianapolis, and Indianapolis could trade for, Matthew Stafford. And then in that situation, you become excited about the prospects of Juju. So, I mean, this is more of a chance to be taken on, but I think wherever he goes, I think he's going to get paid. I think he's going to be I think he's going to be brought in to maybe not the number one wide receiver, but I think he'll be brought in to be heavily involved in the offense wherever he goes. And, from there, all you can really hope for is a good quarterback situation. And there's a lot of teams where quarterback situations are in question right now, but there's a lot of quarterbacks to choose from to fill those voids. So, I like the odds. Like I said, if the Jets retain Darnold, maybe that's the worst situation. If he signed with Jacksonville right now, I'd be more worried about Laviska Shenault's long-term value than I would be Juju's, especially for the money that he would likely sign for. If he signed with Indy and they brought in Matthew Stafford, I would love Juju. There's other situations. There's only a certain amount of places he can go. So this is more of a chancier one, but like I said, I think this is the lowest value that Juju is ever going to be. I think a lot of people are upset with the lack of production. I think they're upset with the immaturity, I should say, of Juju, and different reasons like that. Chris, I'll kick it to you because I know you mentioned it. I don't know. I haven't really. I sent one offer out for Juju, and I haven't really heard back. But I don't really know an actual kind of market price on Juju. So what would it take? You have Juju. What would it take for you to trade him away?
Well, to be clear, it's not. I have no real hatred or dislike or disdain for the Pittsburgh wide receivers. As you said, it's more of a character kind of thing, maturity, age, and things along those lines. This time last year, going into last spring and summer, Juju was in the gym every day, working out, and it was not about, his little dog or driving cars and dancing all over the place. He had a one-track mind, and that was lifting weights and training and running routes, doing things like that to better himself. And then somewhere from the spring and the summer to the start of the NFL season, he started to, we all know the story, danced on midfield on everybody's logo there, and he got away from doing why he's there, why he's popular. That's to play football, to be a wide receiver. He's got all these TikTok followers, all that would go away if he wasn't a professional wide receiver. I don't know if he gets that, or he puts two and two together, that without him on the field, all the other stuff would go away. So it's about priorities here with me. Character, and I hate to say character issues, especially what happened from that offensive lineman in Seattle last night or this morning here. But I just want to make sure that these guys, especially a guy like Juju, if I'm going to go out on a limb and add these guys, number one, I want to make sure I like them as a person, as a player. Fantasy football, first and foremost, is supposed to be fun. I don't mind if I have a crappy, shitty team. Is it a collection of guys I love to watch play? Is it a collection of guys I love to research and message with and things like that? That's my first priority. And when it comes to Juju, he doesn't do anything for me. He could be good or he could be bad. It doesn't matter to me. I just don't want that headache on my roster. And then we saw as soon as he put the phone away and dancing, on the field, he was like, I need to do this, because even his teammates were putting him down about it. You're fucking us up, man. That's what you're doing. You're really screwing us up, right? Yeah. We were undefeated, and then I don't know what was happening in the locker room or what was going on. In terms of buying Juju Smith-Schuster, I wouldn't. Personally, I'm not looking to add him. Doesn't matter where he goes. I don't think he stays in Pittsburgh. Like I said, they have two very young wide receivers, Claypool and Deontay Johnson, who are probably still on their rookie deal. So this is their window to maybe add a veteran quarterback if Ben goes away. They need a running back as well, too. I don't think James Conner is going to be the man there much longer. So they're cool. They can afford to let Juju walk. And wherever he goes, that's where he goes. I wish him the best. I'm just not buying him.
I feel. I completely respect it, too. Bill, I know in the past you have been a big Juju Smith-Schuster fan. So would you be buying him right now?
I'm all for Juju. I just don't think he's a alpha receiver, man. For Juju to be good, he would have to play for a good quarterback, and there would have to be a good number one wide receiver. So, for example, kind of like I'm trying to think of like a team that Juju would go to.
Devontae Adams and Green Bay. I don't know why they named Devontae.
Let's say in a weird scenario, Chicago has Allen Robinson and Juju or something like that, and not Mitchell Trubisky as their quarterback. Then I would be maybe interested in Juju if they had like a rookie quarterback or something like that. But like it would have to be like a certain scenario like that. I don't think Juju's like an alpha receiver, and I don't think he can manufacture his own production without relying on a quarterback.
Well, for me personally, just to give the argument against, I look at some of the top teams in cap space. Number one, Jacksonville, and I see the number one is DJ Chark there, and enter Trevor Lawrence. That's a really good quarterback situation. I think that one would be one that would interest me. Indianapolis, I hate to beat a dead horse, but I see Michael Pittman as a really good wide receiver who can be the one in that offense. And then Juju, enter a sort of niche number two role there with potentially a guy like Matthew Stafford at quarterback. I think the reason I would say Juju, number one, I said his value is going to be at his lowest right now. But number two is that really in the past, when a wide receivers enter free agency, you don't know about his situation versus a quarterback. But normally, wide receivers tend to take the big money contract because they want to end up on a team where they just get paid a lot of money and they don't really care about the quarterback situation and all this. But because a lot of the teams at the top have the situation where they're going to likely figure out their quarterback situation, like Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence with the number one pick, like Indianapolis, where I just believe they're going to find a good quarterback because they're a good franchise, and they'll make it work one way or another. Things like that, I am a little more confident in this year. Like Kenny Golladay, for example. I don't think he's back in Detroit. Chris, you wouldn't think Kenny Golladay is back in Detroit? Doesn't fit the long term. He's not going to stay there long term. Like if he's back, it's on the franchise tag, and if they're trading Matthew Stafford, then there's no point to franchise tag Kenny Golladay.
long term, I'd like to think he'll be here. And the way to do that, short term fix, is a franchise tag, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a collection of the highest paid wide receivers in the league, and there's a percentage there, so you get a pretty,
The top
a
10%.
12 million, 13 million will he'll be able to get in 1 year. And to stay in Detroit, I think he would do that. It's just up to the fact, will they offer that to him, and we'll see. I think they do. I think Kenny G stays on a franchise tag, and then they'll have a year or two to kind of work out a long-term deal, and then it would be up to the franchise, and it'd be up to him in that year and a half since they franchised him. Fast forward from now to this time next year, what kind of quarterback did they have playing the season? Who did they bring in? Are they you know what I mean? So it's like a 1-year audition for both parties involved.
Right. Yeah. I think there's a lot of variables to factor in regardless, but because of the sour taste that I feel like a lot of people have on Juju right now, I feel like you'll get value likely. If I have to go out and trade, I don't know, a mid first or even a late first for Juju, I probably won't be doing it. I'll probably trade multiple seconds at that point because I think he can be a solid contributor on your team. But I'm not going to overinvest in Juju. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying buy the value here because it's dipping because a lot of people are sour on him. And one way or another at the end of this season, or off season, I should say, he'll be with a team. He'll likely be paid a lot of money. And hopefully they have a good quarterback situation and things could work out. Okay, Trey, let's head back to you. You got 2 more buys here. So who are you buying among this list? Well, you're buying.
I'll be quick with mine. But the second guy that I've been looking for this offseason is Tyler Higbee. We saw what Tyler Higbee could do in 2019 in the fantasy playoffs whenever Gerald Everett went down, and we all expect Gerald Everett to move on. The report already came out and said that the Rams are not going to re-sign Gerald Everett or Josh Reynolds, so they're already probably going to be replacing him. Tyler Higbee, we saw what happens when his snap percentage goes up. And that offense wasn't quite what it was this season. They didn't go really heavy towards their wide receivers like they did in the past. They didn't, you didn't see Cooper Kupp catch 100 balls or, Robert Woods catch over 1,000 yards. So they really went heavy with their tight ends, and I think that's going to continue in 2021.
Yeah, I like the point specifically because I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about Tyler Higbee and that Gerald Everett likely leaving, that'll open the door. Bill, what are your thoughts on Tyler Higbee, the Rams offense? This is another team that, I mentioned the shaky quarterback situation. Here we are.
Yeah, man. I'm not really too high on Jared Goff too much right now because he's just not really showing too much for me. Woods and Kupp are still re-signed, right?
Yes.
As long as they're there, I don't know. Higbee and Everett got to fight for it, man. Usually when one of those guys are out, I kind of like playing the other guy. But I don't know, man. Higbee's a talented player. I thought he was going to have a good season this year, but he kind of disappointed me in some spots.
I would say, and even after 2019, that's whenever he re-signed there for, I think, 4 years. So he still has 3 years left on the contract. So he's stuck there. They're stuck with him. I think he doesn't have a dead cap until after 2021. So I felt comfortable. I would love it if he was a high-end tight end too, and I think that's very capable for him in 2021. So
I feel that. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I had my computer muted and I wasn't even smoking a joint here, so give me a second to collect myself. So when it comes to those tight ends, I've made no bones about the fact that I love Jared Goff. I think he's a great quarterback. And when it comes to him, there is no in between, meaning people either love him and they enjoy rostering him, or they hate him and they think he's dog shit. So there's no in between here. And when it comes down to it, the only reason I actually favor Gerald Everett is from a DFS perspective. Everett just stayed at $4,500 on FanDuel. He stayed at $3,200 on DraftKings all season. So it was a nice move because I've always punted tight ends, both in seasonal formats and DFS formats. And Tyler Higbee was exactly what I personally expected him to be this year. Everybody said he was going to be amazing and he was going to do this, he was going to do that, and he just wound up being kind of, meh. He was just kind of there. So long term, I love the idea again of buying Tyler Higbee because nobody's on him. You're going to get him for dirt cheap. I would, we've all heard the term throw-in guy, throw-in player. I think there was a pretty good thread a couple days ago that Casey girl, she had like, what's a throw-in player that you would like? Tyler Higbee is the perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. You two could have done your trade with CEH and Zeke, and then you could have said, hey, I'm you, Trey, I'm speaking on your behalf right now. Hey, Rob, I'm giving you all these guys you want. Might as well just throw in Tyler Higbee. And he's an afterthought, and you can put him on your team, and bam, you've stopped the bleeding, or he's like a stopgap at tight end for your team. So I like it. I would buy Tyler Higbee because it's an under-the-radar move, not going to cost you anything. And if he hits, you're paying dividends. And if he's just meh again, good. What are you looking at? 4 or 5 touchdowns, 500-600 yards at a tight end position. That's cool, especially for someone like me who, as I've said, I'd rather punt a position and stack up at other offensive positional players.
Yeah, I feel that. I like the Higbee point. I probably won't be buying him myself just because I'll probably be looking for more upside at the position, taking my shot on guys like Adam Troutman, who I think have the potential for more. Also, Chris, I like your confidence in Jared Goff, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen in Los Angeles this offseason, because, the relationship with McVay and Goff is apparently shaky at best at the moment. So it's another thing to have some concern about. But for the price, you could probably get Higbee dirt cheap right now, like you mentioned, a little throw-in player. So how do you not buy at that price? Chris, your second buy of the episode.
Now this one's really no secret. I mean, actually, it might be. It's Rashard Penny, Seattle Seahawks running back. And again, to everybody that's watching this now or will watch this, when I was kind of pressured and forced into mentioning Rashard Penny here, which I don't mind. He was on the list already, and I believe it was you, Rob, who said. You gave me the nudge. You go, I think you should mention Rashard Penny here. And in terms of what he could be long term or even next season, I think he could be a low end RB2 just by default here. So we know back-to-back seasons with a major knee injury. He completely lost season at the end of 2019 and the entire year 2020, most of the year here with an ACL tear at the end of 2019. Excuse me. So his first 2 seasons, not a lot of work. 150 carries, 789 yards, which it looks to be 5.3 yards a pop here, 5 touchdowns, about a handful of receptions, about 17 or so, and another touchdown through the air here. Now, if you look at what's going to happen in Seattle, so Carlos Hyde and Chris Carson are free agents. I don't think Carlos Hyde will be back, and Chris Carson, I don't think he'll be back either. And that's just, I'm a big Chris Carson guy. I made a playoff push, and I added Carson and Zeke, as we talked about earlier in the episode here. So it's going to leave Rashard Penny and the young kid, rookie last season, and you'll be second year, DJ Dallas, who got some run this season. He was heavy in some of our DFS lineups mid-season when all these guys were out here. So in terms of Rashard Penny, Seattle Seahawks, although they have Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett, they are a run-first team. So they drafted this kid for a reason, and they've been holding out hope for him so long. They've been with him in the rehabs and all the injuries and stuff like that. So they haven't, cut bait and got rid of him yet. So if Hyde and Chris Carson go away, they're on other teams, it's going to be Rashard Penny and DJ Dallas here. So I love the idea. Again, a lot of ideas I love here today, because I keep saying that. Rashard Penny, you can add him for nothing. You can probably grab him for seriously nothing. You could probably in dynasty formats or redraft leagues, you could probably swap out a kicker or a DST for Rashard Penny right now. No one cares. If you're in the know, then go add Penny. Granted, if you don't play with a kicker or DST, throw a 4th-round pick, which I think people would jump at in a heartbeat for Rashard Penny. Add him, and we'll revisit this same exact topic this time next year.
Yeah, I like the take a lot. I don't know his upside, but as you mentioned, there's a pathway. Chase Edmonds is a guy who's a big time buy in the Dynasty community on social medias right now, and that's pretty obvious. Kenyon Drake is a free agent, and a lot of people don't expect him back. But a reason I nudged you towards Rashard Penny is because I see him in kind of the same light as Chase Edmonds here. He's a younger running back who hasn't really gotten the opportunity before, and now the people ahead of him are free agents, so the opportunity could be coming. Bill, do you have any hope for Rashard Penny?
Dude, I remember I texted you when you said Rashard Penny. I was like, man, I forgot he even existed.
Yeah, I thought he died.
No, not really, man. I think they'll draft somebody.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that works out. Trey, I know you're on a bit of a time limit here, so I will let you go into your third and final buy here and now.
Sweet. My third and final buy is Daniel Jones. I'm not overly confident on Daniel Jones, but I do like the fact that this is probably his last shot. With the Giants, this is his 3rd year, and he hasn't looked all that well. So I expect the Giants to surround him with a lot of wide receiver talent. He has Saquon Barkley coming back. Evan Ingram is talented. I still have faith in him. So I think if they do bring in a couple wide receivers, which I hope they do, I haven't looked at their cap situation, but I hope they have enough space to maybe bring in possibly Juju or something like that. I think that'll only help Daniel Jones. And the Dynasty community is crapping on him right now. I think he has a lot of high upside. He's still super young, and he has that job pretty much secured right now with no one else really around him. So I'd be looking to buy Daniel Jones right now.
In favor of your argument in the fantasy aspect of it, he is a good runner as well, and that kind of goes forgotten. And running quarterbacks give you that baseline in Superflex leagues. If you could buy him for cheap, you could do worse than Daniel Jones at your quarterback 2 or 3 position there. Chris, how do you feel about Daniel Jones?
Danny Dimes he's good in my book. I've always kind of looked at Danny Dimes and Sam Darnold in the same light. I made a mistake a couple months ago. I thought they were in the same draft class, but Daniel Jones is 1 year older than Sam Darnold. And I'm with Trey here. I believe he's going to get another shot. It's going to be in the 2021 season. And again, another guy who you can get for nothing, but if he hits, if he pops, you're going to be okay, especially in Superflex leagues, because nowadays that's all it is. IDP is kind of, nobody's really talking about it. Standard scoring is like a dinosaur, right? Nobody who plays in standard scoring leagues anymore. It's PPR Superflex leagues that people are getting away from kicker, DSTs. It's just Superflex, 2 quarterbacks. And in a 2 quarterback league, Daniel Jones is a fantastic complementary piece on your team. Let's say in your draft you grab, give me a stud quarterback. Anybody, name something.
Pat Mahomes.
Let's say you drafted Pat Mahomes 101, and you're good. You can wait until 4th or 5th round in a super flex to draft a quarterback. I'd be more than happy with Pat Mahomes and Danny Dimes as both my quarterbacks on a long-term dynasty team, even in a redraft league. Daniel Jones is definitely a buy for me too. Again, he's been given every chance in the world, and we see. I think people, the Giants and everybody like us, are just hanging on because we see it. He has what it takes, but when is he going to take that next step? I firmly believe it's going to be this coming season. So yes, I am buying Daniel Jones.
Interesting. I like it. I especially like it if they invest more in the offense and Saquon stays healthy. So yeah, I like the points. I'm gonna head into my second buy. Billy and I only have 2 buys, so that you guys could have 3, and we could have a nice little run here. So, my second buy here is a guy that I mentioned on the podcast with when Trey was on the other week. I tweeted about it. I know Billy liked that tweet about it yesterday. And it's a guy where I'm disappointed because he's doing really well in the playoffs right now, and it's only driving up his value. So right now, I am making the effort to buy Mecole Hardman for the Kansas City Chiefs. Wide receiver, specifically Pat Mahomes. By the way, by Trey at FF Superflex Guru on Twitter. Follow him
later, guys. Thanks
and
for
check
having
him
me
out
on.
there. No problem, Trey. Buying Mecole Hardman because, number one, he is tied to the best quarterback in football, the most talented most talented quarterback, period, in Pat Mahomes. Number 2, Sammy Watkins is a free agent, and Demarcus Robinson are both free agents. They are 2 guys that consistently run ahead of Mecole Hardman in rotations. The problem that you would bring up probably with Mecole Hardman is Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are basically the first, second, third, and fourth reads in the offense. But at the same time, and then, I do progress next season, or expect next season to be better for Clyde Edwards-Helaire and the running game. So that's a point against Mecole Hardman, but I think next year, he's a former second-round pick for a reason. I think next year he will, in his 3rd season, which is the season that really starts to click for wide receivers, I think next season is the year that Mecole Hardman really enters that consistent wide receiver 2 role. And if he does, for Pat Mahomes, with the speed he has immense upside as a potential top 20 wide receiver. So that was my kind of hope for this year. Then they signed Sammy Watkins and DeMarcus. Well, no, they kept Sammy Watkins and they signed DeMarcus Robinson again. So it wasn't the best situation for me as a Mecole Hardman truther. I held on to him for the year, though, because I have hope for him to enter that situation again this year, and I expect it to happen. Bill, I'll ask the man who liked my tweet. What are your thoughts on Mecole Hardman long term?
I mean, I like anybody tied with Patrick Mahomes. I feel like his ADP, though, is going to be a little bit too high for my liking, though. I feel like wide receiver is a position where especially in Dynasty, I kind of like the older guys a little bit because they kind of go a little bit undervalued and stuff like that. And if you give me like a toss-up, like, for example, like Nelson Aguilar, man, like hot take. I'd rather have Nelson Aguilar than Mecole Hardman.
Ooh. That is, yeah, I'm not vibing with that.
I'm messing with you. I
hope so.
Maybe in like a season-long league, but not in Dynasty.
I'm glad. I'm sorry for any of you that had to hear that and then maybe logged off real quick because you were just listening to the blasphemy. Chris, what are your thoughts on Mecole Hardman?
Well, when it comes to a guy like Hardman, or even as Billy said, what the heck, Aguilar, it's all relative. Where are you going to get him? Am I going to go out of my way to draft him in certain spots? Probably not. Am I, highlighting his name on my draft sheet? Absolutely. And again, when I say relative, I mean where am I at in my draft, or where is my team headed, in the offseason in terms of adding or, making moves here. I'd absolutely love to add McCole Hardman. He's a fantastic kind of punt play on a weekly basis for DFS formats. Sorry, I keep mentioning I'm just so predisposed to DFS, but it has some substantial kind of legs here with this, DFS and overall seasonal formats. But buying McCole Hardman, yes. In a trade, absolutely. Where am I going to draft him? Again, I don't go into a draft wanting to draft Hardman, but I'll see where it goes. I could absolutely 100% buy McCole Hardman.
I'm glad I could sway you on that one instead of the other idea that was on the table from me. Bill, I'll have you finish this one out here with your second Dynasty buy, and then actually not finish it out because we got one more for Chris, and then we'll be done. But Bill?
Yep. My Dynasty buy here is going to be Laviska Shenault Jr., a.k.a. Visca Honcho. That's what I like to call him. There was a lot of hype coming into his rookie campaign in 2020. He showed some glances but struggled with consistency overall. I think this team's going to get a massive quarterback upgrade. Hopefully it's Trevor Lawrence. We're hoping, we're praying. It's a great buy low window, I feel like, for this offense, because I feel like when we get into August, a lot of people are going to be talking about the Jaguars' offensive pieces like James Robinson, DJ Chark. What's that one dude's name? Colin Johnson?
Mm-hmm.
6'6" dude, red zone target guy. But there's some vacated targets leaving this team like D.D. Westbrook and Chris Conley. Their contracts are up. The Jaguars' depth chart isn't really too deep. He finished second on the team in receptions. And I think the overall offense of this team's production is going to go up. And I kind of want to buy low before people get, once they see the jersey with Trevor Lawrence and the hype and him on ESPN and stuff like that, that's when people are going to start buying into the Jags offense, not in these winter months like March, April and stuff like that, during the combine and stuff like that.
Right.
You told me there's not a combine this year, right?
Yeah, there isn't.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
I did see a startup mock. I don't know if it was a mock or an actual draft, but recently on Twitter where Trevor Lawrence was the second quarterback off the board. So there's some hype about it. I don't know why that hasn't translated into people wanting to buy guys like Laviska Shenault and DJ Chark yet. Chris, do you have a thought here?
Yeah, Visca is fantastic. I love everything about this kid, and we haven't seen anything yet in terms of what he can do on the field and where they're going to move. They can move him around. Like, he can play, he can take a handoff. They can pitch it out to him. He can run a slant. He can run the deep ball. I believe the kid is like 6'3", right? He's big. He's tall. Mm-hmm. He's thin. He's fast. He's the proverbial Swiss Army knife, as people love to say. Now, in comparison to like baseball, multi-position eligibility is fantastic, and Laviska is the same thing on a football field. So I am absolutely 100% buying Laviska Shenault Jr.
I like it. I like it a lot. I did like him a bit more than the consensus did pre-draft. So I like that we can have this conversation about a year later. Chris, you want to round us out here with a nice buy at the quarterback position?
Yeah, I'll be quick and easy here. It's Ryan Tannehill, the Tennessee Titans quarterback. This past season, he finished as quarterback 7. Let me give you a couple stats. 2,294 completed air yards, which is different than obviously regular yards. Air yards, like let's say a guy, they pitch, through the air. They pitch it to him 1 yard, he takes off. It's different. So though we're talking deep balls, A.J. Brown, baby, big buy here. But that was the 9th most at the quarterback position. Only quarterback with fewer than 500 pass attempts to make it into the top 10 in quarterbacks here. He had a career best 7 rushing touchdowns. In the way that offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, his scheme, they've really maximized the play action for Tannehill because he's so athletic. He can run. Remember all those times, Brady is, 50 years old, but on the 1 yard, 4th and goal on the 1 yard line, or 4th down, in their own territory, they'll let Brady take it because, he can get that. The C parts and these guys get in. They were starting to let Tannehill do the same thing. And look at what he's got coming. A.J. Brown, Jonnu Smith, and Derrick Henry is unbelievably good at running back. That always helps a quarterback here. But the only question is, what's going on with Corey Davis? Is he going to come back? Is he going to be a Detroit Lion? Fingers crossed there. But any way you slice it, Ryan Tannehill is a top 10 quarterback. And again, just another guy nobody cares about, nobody talks about, but he's a very solid, under the radar move to make by buying Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I was in a position where I was on the verge of buying him for like a low end first round pick, and I was very happy to do that in a dynasty league. Sadly, I couldn't do it because he didn't have quarterback depth beyond Tannehill, but that's a price that I'd be willing to pay. Billy, thoughts on Tannehill?
Yeah, I'm a fan of Tannehill. I think AJ Brown, more importantly, I almost put him on my list, but I felt like that was too easy of a one. So if I'm buying AJ Brown, I guess I'm buying Ryan Tannehill also as well. One thing about Ryan Tannehill that a lot of people don't really realize is he has a pretty good rushing floor.
Yeah, definitely is. Chris mentioned with the 7 rushing touchdowns, but when it comes with the yards too, there's a lot to like about Tannehill. It's easy to run on the read option when you're semi-athletic and you have Derrick Henry at running back. So only stands to help. And that'll round out our Dynasty Buys episode. Just a little review. Trey is buying A.J. Dillon, Tyler Higbee, and Daniel Jones. Chris buying Ezekiel Elliott, Rashad Penny, and as you see on the screen, Ryan Tannehill. Bill buying Joe Mixon, Laviska Shenault. Rob, who is me, buying Nicole Hardman and Juju Smith-Schuster. Shout out to Trey at FF Superflex Guru for coming on to the pod today again. Enjoyed having him. And Chris, we enjoyed having you at Detroit Beastie on Twitter. Anything to say to the people? Anything you want to shout out on your Twitter?
Yeah, shout out to both you guys, Rob and Billy Getting Bills, as we all know him, as I call him. Thanks for having me on. Always a great conversation. Forgive the technical difficulties at the start of things.
Yeah, no worries.
Again, when I use my computer, it morphs me into Blake Griffin mode here. But yeah, you can find me at Detroit Beastie. Hockey, DFS is huge for me. Love playing it, love writing about it. And every day at about 10 or 11 in the morning Eastern time, Hot Pucking Stacks is out. It's out now. I post several sample lineups all day, every day. So thanks for having me on, and great time.
Sure thing. Anytime, Chris. And then Bill, at Getting Bills on Twitter. You always got the DFS stuff going on. Yeah, no problem. I feel that. And follow me on Twitter at FantasyForceFB. Follow the show at Dynasty Force Podcast. Check us out on YouTube, follow the show at Dynasty Force Pod. Check out our YouTube Dynasty Force Podcast. And yeah, check us out on all major streaming platforms if you aren't listening already. Thanks again for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and we'll catch you next week for the Dynasty Force Podcast.